Welcome to the Courageously Candid Coaching Podcast. I'm Matthew Radley, CEO of MRA Executive Coaching, and this is the podcast where we say it as it is. In this episode, we will be exploring what it takes for an organisation to seriously up its game in the field of professional mentoring capability for leaders, and the impact on developing an inclusive culture and also on strategic succession planning, a win-win. Our guest today is Gemma Board, Head of Talent Learning and Development at Smurfit Westrock, who has trusted MRA with professional mentoring development needs for her leadership population and has said yes to bringing her truth to our conversation. Gemma is known for having exceptionally high standards for herself and for her organisation, so get ready to up your game as a result of listening to today's episode. We know how important this area of discussion is for all of us in organisation, as costs of external hires increases and internal talent pipelines dry up without investment. So welcome, Gemma. Thank you for coming and joining us on our podcast today. It would be really good to start with if you could talk about your history with MRA. So where did we begin? Where are we at as we sit here in the context today in 2025?
Okay, so back to the beginning. Yeah. I've been working in my current organisation for 12 years. Changed roles a couple of years ago to work in L&D and talent. Yeah. And I think one of the things that I noticed when I first started in that role was around coaching and mentoring. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't satisfied. I've got quite high standards and I was like, what we're doing at the moment isn't really working. Yeah. So I spoke to our HR director at the time and she had worked with you previously. So made the recommendation to connect. So that's, I think, where our initial conversation started. Mm-hmm. Primarily that was around kind of coaching frameworks and skills, but actually I was doing some other work at the time which was around mentoring for a new talent development program that we've put in place. So I've been working with Hilary for the last almost 12 months.
Yeah, I think it is 12 months
in the planning to deliver a mentoring with confidence program, which we've run a couple of cohorts now. So yeah, that brings us into 2025
as we sit here today. Yeah. Hilary, from your perspective, your initial connection in with Gemma, what do you notice about Gemma as a leader?
Yeah, I think Gemma brings that sort of energy, and you've already said about your professionalism, which I think from the initial conversations we had around wanting to really drive that expertise, skill with leaders in mentoring, that really shone through. And the commitment to doing it, but in a way that's really like approachable and personable and wanting to engage with leaders. So yeah, it was, Gemma's so easy to work with and just quite fun to work with as well.
You, Hilary.
Thanks.
I love that moment. I think you have exceptionally high standards, by the way. That's my view. Okay, so mentoring. Why do you stand up for mentoring? As a principle, as a behaviour, as a developmental experience? People talk about it all the time, do nothing with it, assume everybody's a great mentor just because they've been around the block. But you have really stood up for it. You have raised the bar and then some in the organisation. Why?
Primarily through my own experience as a human, I would say. So I think, when I started my career, I had an idea of what I wanted to do. And I think in my second role, I was really fortunate to have a line manager actually who didn't say that she was mentoring me, but on reflection, that's exactly what she was doing. So I think, and I'm still, friends with her now actually, but she really did guide and support and challenge and encourage me. And, I reflect back, and if I hadn't have met her at the point in time that I met her, would I be where I am today? Absolutely not. I think she gave me like a belief in myself. And I think fundamentally, I want other people to have that opportunity that I've had. I just think that's really, really important. And I think, you're absolutely right. Loads of people talk about mentoring. And I don't think that just having been around the block, to use your words, is good enough. I don't think that necessarily, I think it adds an element, absolutely. But I don't think that in itself is what makes a good mentor.
Okay. Nice.
It's funny for you when you're talking about that in terms of the experience you had, and that certainly has come through with the people that we're working with on the mentoring program, the leaders, that most of them come to mentoring because they've had a mentor themselves. And what really shone through was the commitment of wanting to give back to the organisation.
Yeah.
But also then but I also want to make sure I do a really good job. And how do I know when I'm mentoring well?
Yeah.
And that's certainly a lot of the conversations we've had are around, how do I know I'm doing it right?
And there was a couple that literally was said, wasn't it, by, because we asked, at the start of the programme, we asked people, like, why are you here? And they were like, is it because I'm old and I've been here a long time? No, it's actually it's not that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit of that.
It's sometimes. Experience is really important because, like in mentoring, there is that element of I've been here, I've trodden these paths, I've walked in these shoes, I've got experience, I can offer some advice. But again, when Hilary and I were working together, it was a much more fundamental shift than that, and people really digging into, am I doing a good job, and what does doing a good job look like and feel like for my mentee? And I think it was as much about developing their skills and confidence as it was for the mentees as well.
Yeah, and that's definitely something we notice. People assume that the mentor is the one who's got the
Giving
easy
everything.
job.
Yeah.
And the mentees having to sort of front themselves really well. And actually, it's almost the opposite. Invariably, the mentor is the one where the investment and development is most needed.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%.
And I love this phrase around sort of mentor self-belief, the self-belief that you received, that you then want to be able to enable through others as mentors. Really nice.
It was one of the things that Gemma and I discussed when we were working out how to position the programme and how to upskill mentors was, because you've got a coaching background, you understand coaching, what's the difference between coaching and mentoring? And I actually think mentoring is a harder job than coaching. Oh, I'm a coach, so I know how hard it is. But mentoring, there's that fine line between using a coaching approach some of the time, so, great listening and asking questions and enabling somebody. But at what stage do you step into giving advice, imparting knowledge? And there is a sort of balance between the two, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And we had someone recently sort of who spoke to Hilary and I and said, "Do you know what, I've realised I thought I was mentoring, but actually all I'm doing is, not all I'm doing, but what I'm actually doing is giving advice." And they had this real realisation moment that there was a whole other side to mentoring, that they could be creating some space for someone to think, and they could be asking some more questions rather than troubleshooting mode.
Nice.
And it was a real light bulb moment for that person. And they've really taken that and gone with it and reflected on their approach. It's not that they're not ever given advice now. Advice can be great at moments, at points in time, but it's not always what's needed. And I think that balance between the two is really tricky for a mentor to get right.
Yeah, definitely.
What was the turning point? Let's sort of just take a moment to think. At what point when you were within the organisation did you think our current approach is just not good enough? It's not delivering for our leaders, for our mentors, mentees, or for the organisation. What was that moment where you went, no more, we're raising the game here?
There's a few. The first key one for me, somebody said to me, "How many people do we have coaching and mentoring in this organisation?" And I was like, "I don't know." And I thought, I should know. It's not okay that I don't know. And it's because, for really good intentions, our approach had kind of grown with no real intent or strategy or plan. And it was based on good relationships and based on who knew who and who had offered to mentor who. Some people were mentoring but didn't even realise they were mentoring.
Yeah.
They thought maybe they were network connections, but maybe it was more than that. So there was no real structure, and I couldn't hand on heart say, well, actually the experience that this person's getting and the quality and standard they're getting is the same or different to what this person's getting. And I think alongside that, this was at the time we were introducing our new talent program for early careers. And one of the fundamental things I wanted for that was mentoring, going back to my earlier story, my personal story.
Yep.
And I wanted, it was an opportunity, I guess I'm saying, to do something different. So there was that particular program, and there were lots of eyes on that program and how well that's doing. So it was an opportunity to do something different. So all of the mentors that are mentoring on that program have been for our Mentoring with Confidence program. But then what we've actually said in our strategy now, which I don't think I've told you this yet, was approved on Monday. So that's good. What we've actually said is that over the next 3 years, everyone who's mentoring, we want them to go through that program. Lovely, and we want them to do CPD as well, because it's not a, like, you've done the program, tick, off you go, because you're dealing with people, and people are tricky, right? Yeah.
And it's that when Gemma and I are talking about CPD and kind of supervision within mentoring as well, actually, because what you're opening up is a different type of relationship with your mentee, creating that space, which again is more akin to coaching. And in opening up a space and creating that trust, we're now seeing more of the mentors perhaps having a bit of a challenge, or I don't know what I do here, or this has happened, and those kinds of conversations, they're now coming to you, Gemma, aren't they, to talk those things through?
They are coming to me, and I had an example this week, and I was chatting to Hilary about this earlier, where someone came to me and said, look, I've done some mentoring, this is how I'm getting on, this is a challenge, this is how I'm thinking of approaching it, what do you think? So they're coming to me, but what I love even more than that, the Triad groups that we set up in the mentoring program, they are continuing to work together. So we kind of put people in a 3. They are still now meeting, and that just wasn't ever a thing before. So we're not forcing them to do it. There was no, you must do this. It was a recommendation. And, you know, those that have been really keen have continued that. So they've built their little network in their community. And then I think with the CPD that we've got coming up next month, that will just strengthen, you know, that group to be able to work together and share and reflect. And we're going to give them some new content as well, just to keep it fresh as well. So
there's a couple of things that are in my head, and we'll come back to one of them in a minute. But if you were talking to a professional peer in an organisation at the place that maybe you were at 2 years ago, when you knew it wasn't quite right and you couldn't put your hand on your heart and say, I know we're delivering the highest possible standards here, what would be your, I guess, guidance, advice that says raising the bar in mentoring is critical because, and this is how you should go about it?
For me, if I was talking to a peer in another organisation about raising the bar, I would share our journey and share our experience and share some of the stories that we've had coming out recently, which has been different to what we've had before, because, you know, I think people just connect in that way. You know, I could give them all the general spiel about why it's good to do that, and, you know, but you could read that in a textbook or on ChatGPT or something. But actually sharing the real life examples of, look, this is where we were, this is the journey that we have been on, and this is why it's important. And I think, you know, that senior leader commitment that we've got has been really, really key. So I spoke to them at the start of this journey and reported back this week about how we've been getting on. So I think it's, you know, sharing the stories, engaging your stakeholders, really important, you know, getting the investment. And then I think for me, what was really important, and I did consider this, I was like, could I do this by myself? And the answer is yes, probably. However, going back to the point of professional standards and confidence, I wanted to partner with an organisation that I knew had also high standards and experience. So I think that partnership of working with yourselves has been really key for me, because you've taken the time to understand us and our culture and our organisation. You know, Hilary's very professional in what she does, but we've really worked together on it to deliver something that gives us the standards and the credibility from an external provider, plus linking it with our culture. I mean, we've done 2 programs now, and we made, you know, we took the feedback from the first one, and we've made some adjustments to the second one, again, just to keep, you know, notching the dial up, shall we say.
Love it. Keep raising the standards.
And what about the sort of community, the mentoring community? So you've got the senior leaders, some of them are already organically connecting as a result of being placed in those triads. But what do you see in terms of future for that mentoring community?
I just see, that opportunity for that CPD and coming together on a more regular basis to have the conversations is really important, because it's important for mentoring, for the mentees and the mentors, but it's also important for them individually, like personally, because you're connecting with this person in this one-to-one way, and you've got to have that time to kind of reflect and debrief and think about that. And I think the more open people are in sharing those stories and those connections, it actually builds, a stronger leadership community over time. And I think it's about, when is it the right thing for people? Because it's not always the right thing. It's not always the best thing. But when it is, it's a really good thing. So I think, those groups of people, the triads, but then the triads connecting with other groups, you learn differently from different people, don't you? And I think that's what, we're not there yet, but that's what the sort of ambition is to kind of create in the future.
Yeah. And there's something, isn't there, I think, about the raising of the standards and the people within that mentoring group, when you bring them together, listening to stories from an individual, or I've tried this, or this happened. Yeah. There's a sort of accountability as well in terms of raising your own game and making sure that you are continuing to learn, to develop and do the best for your mentees. So it kind of puts a nice bit of pressure, I think, on the leaders within that mentoring community, that I really need to make sure I am mentoring and mentoring well. I'm using the skills because we're coming back together. We're going to be working as a group.
Yeah. And I think it is that sort of peer support as well, isn't it? Because if someone's got a particularly sort of challenging situation, they can practice their skills in a kind of safe environment, but they can also then get feedback, and other people that are supporting them to solve that challenge, they're also improving their skill at the same time. And they might not have that particular challenge right now, but in the future they might have something similar, and they can then think back to that. So I think there's just so many benefits to that kind of community part, and mentors talking about and sharing their experiences, I think.
Okay, so we're just talking around the journey that you would give guidance to professional peers in other organisations. Can you just talk around your journey, where you are, I guess, today, and where we're intending to get to over the next few years?
So we are about 12 months in. So it was about 12 months ago that Hilary and I started to work together to develop the Mentoring with Confidence programme. We've had 2 cohorts go through that, one earlier this year, which was a virtual programme, and then June we did our face-to-face version based on some feedback that we had. We were flexible and adapted, didn't we, Hilary?
We did indeed.
So at the moment we have everybody's about 15 mentors that have trained specifically for the early career development pipeline and pathway that we have. And then we have another 15 that were already mentoring with the business and had some experience, but had never had any sort of formal mentoring training or sort of professional support before. What we have said is that over the next 3 years, we want all leaders that are mentoring. And I don't mean like mentoring as part of line management, responsibilities, but are actually mentoring somebody from another part of the organisation. Over the next 3 years, we want them all to take the programme. And then the ambition, which we're starting this year actually, is that they will all then do CPD for at least 2 hours twice a year. Just to keep that skill, up there, refreshed. They realise the importance. They know they're still being invested in their development and their mentoring. But also, again, we continue to improve the quality and standards, because that opportunity to reflect on the mentoring they're currently doing. Plus, there are so many skills and topics we could have included in the programme. We couldn't fit it all in. So we will drip feed like certain topics into some of the CPD around neurodiversity or further stuff on self-awareness or safeguarding, just to keep it fresh, because it never stops.
Can we just...
So there was a lovely example, wasn't there, at the second cohort, of you sharing an example of where the first 3 of the first mentors had come together because one of them had a challenge and they weren't quite sure how to deal with it. The 3 of them came together and solved it, and it gave the individual confidence to then go and have that conversation with their mentee. And that's also the power of running new cohorts and sharing the experiences. It builds
over time.
Yeah,
definitely.
I'm really interested, I guess, around competency development for leaders. So we said at the very start that most organisations don't necessarily invest. They assume that everybody who's a leader could be a mentor. Just make it really clear for me. What do you think is the one competency that you have seen needing the most improvement in leaders as they transition to become mentors?
Now, this is going to sound basic.
Okay, go basic.
I'm going basic, but it is my answer. Listening. Okay, so you assume, and this is a thing for me as well, right? I'm not like, I'd like to say I'm perfect at this, but I'm not. Listening, I think when we have done the work with them and in other situations, that I see in the organisation, the ability to really, really listen is a challenge. I think a lot of our leaders and I myself like to speak and like to fill the silence. And, when you're doing things in a virtual world, sometimes nowadays you might be talking or feeling you're in a conversation, but my WhatsApp's going off, my Teams messages are going off, other things are pinging at me. The environmental noise really, really distracts. Busyness of our leaders, they're very busy people. You can often be really distracted and you can think you're listening and say you're listening, but are you actually listening to what they're saying, to what they're not saying, to the body language? It's actually really hard to listen, and it takes a lot of energy. And I don't think you think it does.
Yes.
Because I think you just think it's a natural, you've got ears, so you listen. Yeah. But I think to actually truly listen and to then allow people the space, I think that's the one thing in terms of a capability or competency, if you like, which sounds very basic, but I think it's way more complicated than that.
And what have you noticed working with the mentoring community in terms of competency shift requirement, I guess from beginning to end of development?
Yeah, I mean, you say listening, it sounds really basic, but I don't think it is basic. I think it's the one thing that we see consistently, whether it's in a coaching program or a mentoring program or any other leadership development, that people are just terrible at listening. Awful. And the sort of the shift from, that's what listening really is. I can not speak for 10 seconds and it's quite helpful and there's a bit of silence there and somebody will continue to think and fill that space. Yeah. There's definitely a bit of a light bulb when you're talking to individuals and you're seeing them practicing listening and suddenly it becomes a much more intentional.
Yeah.
And you're right, the energy that it takes. So seeing that shift when we look at the listening competency and what that allows in terms of people's thinking, that is a huge light bulb moment. I'm looking at a light bulb over there thinking, yes,
Love a light
it
bulb.
is a light bulb moment.
Well, what's the felt experience, though, from a mentee who is being deeply, deeply listened to by a very capable and credible mentor?
I think initially, and I'll give two examples. So one from the early career talent pool, I did some prep work with them about this is what mentoring is, this is what it looks like, these are the types of things you can discuss. The feedback we had initially, they were a bit like, two things. One, they didn't know we told them what to expect, but they still didn't know what to expect. But I think when they had this listening piece, a lot of them felt invested in, that somebody was willing to take the time to listen to them and to listen to their concern, their challenge, their feeling, whatever it might be that they're talking about. I think that investment from somebody senior who is committed to developing their own skills, I think feels really valuable to those people. To start with, I think it was unnerving because they were like, why would they want to talk to me and spend this time listening to me? I'm not good enough. I'm not at that stage in my journey where this person would be taking that interest in me. So I think to start with, it probably felt unnerving for them. But as they've got used to that, I think they become freer. And I think the impact is and we've had examples that people have shared with me where they're now able to solve some of their own problems because they've just got that space which you don't very often have in your day, do you? They have that space to kind of think and process. And I had a call yesterday, actually, from a mentor who said, I just want to share with you, and went on to tell me this beautiful story about an experience they've had with their mentee, where previously they would have said yes to something, but now they've actually said no, which might sound negative, but they've actually fully had the space to consider the implications, and they've made a choice for right reasons, whereas previously they wouldn't have felt confident in making a choice. So I think, that ability to be more confident to make decisions, I think is a really key impact on that. And I guess my personal example is about this silence piece. And I really remember Hilary doing this. We were in one of the first workshops, and Hilary threw out a question to the group and nobody responded. And I was like, is she going to say something? Shall I say something? This has gone on too long. I'm not comfortable.
It was a whole 5 seconds, was it?
It was probably a whole 5 seconds. But that point for me, they then did, and she left it longer than I thought was comfortable.
Okay.
For me as a observer, co-facilitator, whatever role I was in. But people then did start to talk. And that then just made me reflect on that real power of silence in listening. Because you kind of think you always should be giving some body language or some, verbal or non-verbal cues or something. But I think actually that impact then of the silence enabled the group in this particular example to think before they spoke. And I think that is really underrated as well. I think people feel like in today's world, everything needs to be instant and quick. And I know since then I have left more spaces when I've framed questions out, because previously I'd have thought, are they still there? Have they fallen asleep? Has my network connection dropped? Why are they not talking? But I think that comfortableness that you showed and then what the quality we got from that, that was important.
I'm really interested in the value or lack of value in putting mentoring into place in a sort of professionally accredited, well thought through, strategic way. So what is the risk of having none of that in place in organisations? And then on the converse side, the value, I guess, that you find as an expert in your field, bringing mentoring to play in your organisation?
So the risk of not having it is that people will naturally develop relationships. They will naturally make connections. An element of mentoring, whether you call it that or know it as that, will probably just naturally develop because, more experienced people tend to help people that are less experienced. But I think in that situation, you've got you're often following what's gone before. And that can be a really good thing. But then you can end up getting kind of carbon copies. And I've seen this, and I used to do it. So I used to kind of emanate the style of my manager in a previous role because I didn't know any different and I saw them as a successful person. So I thought, I will do what they do. They advised me and guided me and mentored me in an unofficial capacity. So I emanated their style. But actually what then happened was, over time, I realised I wasn't them. And that wasn't Gemma. So this whole authentic, not to be too cheesy, but it wasn't authentically me. I was trying to be somebody else who I saw being successful. So I think, part of the risk of not having mentors that have got the mindset and the self-awareness and the skill is that it happens in a very natural way, which isn't always wrong. But if you don't have that self-awareness and that kind of boundary,
lovely.
I think you can get a situation where people are trying to be that person and that at some point won't feel comfortable. Or you get kind of this groupthink situation in organisations, whereas the flip side to that, I guess, is if you have the investment in mentoring and your mentors or coaches kind of develop that style where they are encouraging people to think for themselves and come up with their answers that they're comfortable with and develop their style, then you're getting, that kind of genuine, credible people that will make their own path.
Yeah.
And I just think that's really important.
It's really important. Go on then, be courageously candid in the last minute. Call it out
try.
to organisations. Tell them the one thing they absolutely have to do and the one thing they must definitely never do.
Oh, gosh, you've thrown me now, Matt.
That's okay. Take some time to think.
I shouldn't I?
Should we leave some silence? Oh, we can leave some silence so everybody can talk through it. Just keep talking.
I think the one thing that organisations must do is invest in their leaders. And I would say that needs to be in whatever capacity fits their organisational structure and culture and what their aims are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think mentoring, whether it's mentoring skills for line managers or leaders or for a specific development programme, I would say is fundamentally important. I think that ability to ask good questions, be self-aware and to listen, if you break it down into 3 basics, I would say they would be the things, we can overcomplicate leadership development, right? But if we've got people that are listening, they're aware of how they show up and they give the opportunity or create conditions for other people to come up with answers. I don't think it needs to be, simply said, but I think, that's the way of uncomplicating it.
So if you're a mentor, you should be developed to be a professional mentor.
Yes.
Okay, what should they absolutely not do?
What should they not do? Leave it to chance.
Lovely.
Full stop.
Nice and clear.
Yeah, very clear.
Gemma, thank you so much for bringing your
welcome.
truth to the
It's been fun.
conversation. Really enjoyed that. I'm quite sure we'll hear more stories as we go to strategy phase years 2, 3, 4.
Yes.
So I look forward to some more of those stories then. Anything you'd like to end with?
No, it's great. It's really great to hear your personal experiences of why mentoring is so important to you. So thank you for sharing that.
Thanks,
Thank
Gemma.
you.
If today's episode resonated with your own experiences, take it not as advice, but as a mirror. We'll be back next time with another coaching conversation that dares to go deeper. We look forward to seeing you then for some more courageously candid coaching conversations.